And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. Folks, if you could take a moment, if this is the first time you hear our show, or you've been a regular listener, and God bless you for either of those, if you could take a moment to follow us, like us, subscribe to us, all the usual stuff. If you happen to pick up one of our shows on our YouTube page, please subscribe. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. It's the mechanism that gets us heard, and be an example of what I call third rail issue radio, although we're video, over the white noise of the outrageously bland, boring, pedantic, non-specific, generic media. You know, it's what we need to get above and beyond, to get our signal a little bit further. So we appreciate the opportunity. We've had a running, if you will, series of episodes over the last 4 or 5 weeks. I think we're going to next week crystallize this into a show so that it's, we can promote it properly and it stands alone from the regular Coalition Radio product. And what we've been focusing on is police reform, civil rights in the city of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Very often, the ongoing adventures of being from the bucket, as some would say, of being a resident of the great city of Pawtucket, is that the issues and the challenges and, well, sometimes the disappointments, sometimes the outright hostility that one reaches when one finds when one's in the city of Pawtucket is subdued in terms of its reporting because of the city of Providence is the capital city, and for so many people, Providence is the identity of the state of Rhode Island. I've long maintained that, let me draw a New York analogy. For many people, Providence is, the Manhattan of New York City. I would allege that, Pawtucket is is like the Brooklyn now. Now, if you know New York City, people associate Manhattan with sort of the bleeding edge and the cutting edge. And if you've spent any time there recently, it's become Disneyfied. It's become mass marketed. A lot of the edge, a lot of the funkiness, and a lot of the sort of the charisma, if you will, of Manhattan has really been drained from the city. Anyone who knows New York City understands that, like Pawtucket, the real action, politics, art, culture, music, a melting pot of almost every imaginable ethnicity and religion, sexual preferences, all of that is really in Pawtucket. Pawtucket, for those in the know, is becoming infinitely more cooler than Providence. There, I said it. But it's true. It's true. So I referred to that when I talk about the need to have a show, because we need to focus on what's going on in Pawtucket, and there is a lot. Hopefully I'll have the signal cleared up for next week's show, but we took some video today. I happened to be at a press conference anchored by Grebs, Mayor Donald Grebian, and Governor McKee, to talk about, the development of a train station that's gradually taking shape on the Pawtucket Central Falls border. And I posited to him, and I hope I have the video cleaned up by tomorrow, and I'll share it separately, but I posited to him after listening to a half hour of how wonderful it's all going to be, with the notion that, we know what happens when a train station is built in a city. And particularly in terms of what I call the halo effect of Boston, people then are attracted to that city, to move to open up businesses. That's great, except, here's the big but. What happens when you take an already white-hot real estate market in Pawtucket, rents that are increasing at a rate faster than average income, and you actually put that on steroids? Because that's what happens when you have gentrification. So, the question I'll always ask as an activist is, who is economic development for? Is it for the people who flood into the city post rail construction project, because now they can commute to Boston from one step further out, but afford what for them is a more reasonable housing price? When you reflect and compare it to say, what the cost of housing and living is in Boston? or is economic development for the people who are already there? The carpetbaggers come in, and all of a sudden we get bistros, and we get designer bagels and donuts and $5 cups of coffee. There's not anything wrong with that. But again, if you are leveraging the development of a city on the backs of its inhabitants, it's particularly in a city like Pawtucket where you've got multiple generations, and you're essentially driving up the price by adding a rail station and a variety of forms of mass entertainment. What does that do to the people who are living here? So I asked the mayor that, and again, I'll share the video tomorrow. We're upgrading our facilities, by the way, in terms of our on-the-road capacities over the next couple of days due to the generosity of one or two folks who are contributors to the program financially. God bless them. They prefer to remain anonymous, but God bless them. So we won't run into this in the future. But the mayor talked about having a committee and having a discussion of that and having a report. And I asked him, when can we expect to see said report? And he said, he'll get back to me. My fellow panelists on this, Dimitri, Lynn, Christine, anyone want to posit when he'll get back to me? Anyone got an idea? Should we take a poll? Price is Right rules, whoever is closest without going over?
I'll say never.
Yeah, I think he's giving me the slip.
But through the miracle of video, Dimitri, he doesn't give me the slip because nothing matters unless it's on video, right? Have we all learned that in the new millennium? I've got it on video, which means it's
the next time you ask, he'll be working on it.
All right. Well, having it on video, in my mind, and Lynn, I love your interpretation of this, is like even better than a double pinky swear. A double pinky swear is pretty serious stuff in my neck of the woods. So I think a video is even more than that. What do you think, Lynn?
I'm thinking you have too much trust in the fact that he's ever going to get back to you, Pat.
But you see, as Dimitri can tell you, and as you guys are learning, I'm always willing to stop by and say, hey, fella, how are you? You see, I go on the road now, and when people don't want to come and say hi, well, Dimitri, what am I like to do? I'll come and say hi to them. I might bring a bundt cake. I might bring a coffee, because hospitality and being a gracious guest is very important. And then I'll ask the effing question.
Does he enjoy the show, Pat?
I don't know. I will just say this. I'm not sure if he's a regular watcher, but what a lot of people don't realize is when you do LinkedIn, when you look up someone's profile on LinkedIn, the person who you looked up finds out. So a lot of people don't know that. So if you're going to stalk someone, in most forms of social media, you can get away with it. Not LinkedIn. So imagine my surprise when Mrs. Grebian was looking at my profile a couple months ago. Maybe there's a job for me in Pawtucket City Hall. What do you folks think? You think I could work at City Hall?
You do a better job with the media than whoever they have.
Anyway, like a little levity never hurts a tough situation, right? So that was my experience in the wilds of Pawtucket today, as Pat takes the show on the road just about every day. And I learned a lot from the late, great Vincent A. Buddy Cianci. One of them was I believe, one of the great political sayings of all time. And tell me if you heard this before, but don't step on don't step on the foot today that's connected to the ass you'll have to kiss tomorrow. There is so much wisdom in that I'm not sure where to even begin. But also, the late, great Vincent A. Buddy Cianci would often say that he would attend the opening of an envelope. And I just want you folks to know that your host will, in fact, attend the opening of an envelope. So there you go. But anyway, let's get to the show tonight. Let's talk. Ms. Bento, why don't you lead off? I know that over the last few weeks, we've spent a great deal of time on the CU4PC report. I think we're going to take a little break from that tonight. We will get back to that next week. And we're going to come up with a show name for next week because it's important to have a really cool show name. But I know that you've got some concerns, and why don't you bring us up to speed on all things Pawtucket?
So some of the things that were brought up by CU4PC are kind of linked to some of the things that are happening this week in the State House, which I will let Dimitri kind of touch base more on. So what kind of led to a lot of the retaliation that was happening to Lynn Farinelli and myself by the former FOP president, um, Officer James Bano. It was because of an APRA that Lynn had put in requesting just the cities of where these officers are coming from. We heard them both, describe what that was for last week, and I'll let them recap that again so everybody understands so we're on the same page. Just wanted to start off by saying the narrator, Bano, who decided to take the story to I call him the bully blogger. It's the social media bullies that want to come after people and lie about them, and just for fun's sake, I guess, out of the retaliation from the Kentucky police. James decided that it would be interesting and cute to lie and tell them that Lynn was asking for the addresses of that she wanted to come to their house and hurt them, which is a lie. If I was Lynn, I would actually be suing him for defamation of character. But we'll get to that. So basically, what happened was the AG's office and I'm going to ask them both to explain this a little more. I'm under the impression that the AG's office stepped in, helped Lynn acquire this information, and when they suggested that the information does come to her, I think that the AG's office, instead of doing what they were supposed to, they kind of enabled the retaliation by now prolonging this information being given because James Bano and his team, who like to say they're going to beat me and Lynn at our own game, that's just like a side talk they have, decided to get the AG's office involved on a state house level to kind of block this whole release of information of police officers' towns and cities. They turned it into a whole big fiasco because now most officers are confused. They think that the request was for addresses, which we can get addresses on Google if we really wanted them. And most people are under the impression that addresses are what was asked for. And the AG's office didn't make it any better by kind of hopping on Team Bano and suggesting that this can turn into something that it never was intended. So another way that they mislead the community to think that activists and advocates are asking for other information to make it seem like we're targeting the police and we're coming after the police. It's all one big kind of like a protect our image type thing. So all of that with the retaliation of Lynn Farinelli. They started off with her first, wrote a bogus article about her, and everybody hopped on board and got misled. Because in Rhode Island, everyone's kind of a little bit narrow-minded sometimes when it comes to these bullies. They want to whatever's trending, which then led to them writing a bogus article about me, where they actually released a police officer's address in my article accidentally because they didn't know he was a police officer. So whatever they were actually coming after us for, the bloggers ended up doing it because they didn't do enough research to find out who they were attacking via myself and Lynn Farinelli. They actually attacked a Providence police officer and put his full home address out there for everyone to see while they're accusing us of trying to do the same thing. So this led to many other things that, like I said, now it's at the state level because this is how hard they'll fight something. And it goes back to what I've been saying from 4 weeks ago. The state and the state police, the AG's office, you can never tell what side they're on because they start off being on the side of the person who put in the APRA request, and now they're enabling the police department to target and retaliate against the citizens because they want to put in their own narrative and make stories up just to get their way. But with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dimitri and Lynn because they had some information that happened to share about what happened at the State House yesterday.
Lynn, do you want to start off on this?
No, you can go ahead. You're the one that testified last night.
Okay, well, Lynn put a public records request in, working with Christine. I think it was October of 2019. And she was requesting the city of Pawtucket police officers reside in. Pawtucket received the request. They denied it. Now, in denying this request, we were familiar with the public records law. This request, all public employees, the cities and towns they reside in, is a public record. And Lynn, Christine, and I were working on a statistical analysis to compare and contrast the community involvement of police officers who live in Pawtucket as compared to police officers who live outside of the city. These are police officers who work in the Pawtucket Police Department. And, trying to analyze their community involvement, whether they are football coaches, the ones that live in the city, or whether the ones that live outside of the city are coaches in the cities that they live in, whatever their community involvement may be. We were trying to analyze this information to see how it relates to the community at large. And Pawtucket denied the request, and FOP President Bano took offense to this public records request, and he went on the Valley Breeze, and I believe he did an article on the Valley Breeze where he mentioned that this was, that Lynn was looking for the release of the names and addresses of the Pawtucket police officers. Now, this is false. That's not what this was about. But they manipulated the public records request to make it look like Lynn was trying to target law enforcement. And this, mistruth has been propagated all the way to the State House now, because what happened is they denied the public records request. We knew it was public record, so Lynn appealed to the Attorney General. The Attorney General took his sweet time, but found that Lynn was correct, and they violated the city of Pawtucket, the violation of the Public Records Act. Pawtucket again refused to give up the information, so the AG was forced to start a lawsuit against the city of Pawtucket in Superior Court. So what happened is basically the AG was shuffling their feet in the lawsuit because they decided, or who did, we're not exactly sure who, but this, sounds like a concerted effort in my opinion. They proposed some legislation at the State House level, which would modify the Access to Public Records Act to bar the release of this information. And the way the law works, if this bill passes at the State House level, it retroactively nullifies Lynn's request and the lawsuit and the violation against the city of Pawtucket. So basically, if they can pass this bill at the State House level, they wipe out everything prior to it, and it like it never existed. So they wouldn't be defending Lynn's right to access this information for the analysis that we were doing. And again, this has been, I think, 3 times they've tried to pass this bill between the House Judiciary and the Senate Judiciary. And all 3 times, I've testified at it at every time it comes up. But I consistently hear the lies that this is information looking to release the addresses of police officers. The union reps say it. It's consistent with all the testimony from everyone. Besides the Attorney General. The Attorney General is somewhat coy about the way he testifies. Obviously, he's a law enforcement agent, so he's got skin in the game too. As far as this public records request go, we could ask for these, cities and towns that the Attorney General's office, employees work at. Mm-hmm. He basically made the argument last night in the testimony that this information he was testifying on behalf of the bill, making it, modifying the APRA, because he says law enforcement agencies had come up to him and they were worried about, the release of this information. And he made the statement that it wasn't necessary to release that information because you could release an aggregate form of that information that would do the same thing. And I countered his testimony by saying that that wasn't true. The city of Pawtucket has already released a list of the police officers, of the number of police officers who live in the city of Pawtucket as compared to the number of police officers who live outside of the city. The nation still won't allow us to do the statistical analysis we were looking to do because we want to compare the officers and their involvement in the city. If we don't know who they are, we don't know what their involvement in the city is. So the Attorney General was basically, he knew what the public request was, but he was also being very coy about the way he explained it. And this has been the case from, every time that this bill has come up at the State House level. I testified basically making it known that this was an issue. And I was trying to get into the rest of the story about the retaliation that came from this bill from Officer Bano inviting Turtle Boy Sports, which is the group that Christine was talking about, to the Pawtucket Police Department to do a training video where they, wrote an article about Lynn Farinelli and Christine. And in this article, they mentioned that Lynn Farinelli was looking to get another lie, probably told to her by Bano. This was Kate Peters and Masshole Mitch. These are the clowns that are representing the city of Pawtucket in their little escapade, having this little video that they were doing for the city. It was obviously Officer Bano and the rest of the officers involved. I'm not sure exactly who. We have public records requests in now trying to find out more information about who was involved in this. But basically, they were using Turtle Boy Sports as a extension of the police department to harass Lynn and Christine, feeding them information and having them do this article. Now, if you understand how Turtle Boy Sports works, they basically pump up their readers, and they use a lot of crass language in their articles. They're like a hate blog type thing. And I'm a big free speech advocate. I have no problem with Turtle Boy Sports writing whatever they want. But the fact is that they were used as an enforcement arm of the Pawtucket Police Department. This is where the problem lies. And this was done to retaliate against Lynn and Christine. And I could go on and on about this, but that's basically the gist of the story.
Right. Where does the legislation stand right now?
I think it was held for further study. This is the third time that it's been held for further study. But I make it a point to give the background of the legislation because the legislators have no clue why this bill is in front of them. And if you put a bill like that in front of them and tell them this is to protect police officers by stopping, the release of their addresses, they're going to vote for it. But once they hear the backstory to this and the truth about what the information that is being looked for is actually about, it's only the cities and towns they reside in, they start to get a better idea that this legislation they're being manipulated by this piece of legislation.
Right. Oof.
I'd like to jump in just for a minute.
Yeah, please. No, please go right ahead. As much time as you need.
Okay. So, over a year ago, the Attorney General's office put in a lawsuit against the city of Pawtucket because of this situation that they were not going to give me the records. As of yesterday, because I didn't look it up today, it's still unassigned. So they put in a lawsuit, and they still don't have a judge to listen to this lawsuit. It's been over a year. So when you're looking at like maybe a little bit of corruption going on or something like that, like they know that this bill is waiting, and it seems like I'm going to also wait until they make a decision on this bill before I get justice, for the violation. So that was one of the things. The other thing is there's a timeline where they did get a violation. They asked for a reconsideration of the decision. The city of Pawtucket had asked for a reconsideration, and that's when Turtle Boy Sports came after me. I actually had to put a stay on the decision because I was in fear for my life. I was 100% in fear for my life because of a public records request, because of James Bano coming after us. Now, the other thing is, which is ironic, I think that we mentioned it last week, there is a video that has Turtle Boy Sports in the annex of the Pawtucket Police Department that supposedly, I guess it has been destroyed or something. But the reason that they originally didn't give me that video was because there were some explorers, some police explorers in the department at the time. Now, I believe that they signed a waiver anyway, so they must know that they're being videotaped. But the ironic part of this is the woman that came after us from Turtle Boy Sports, Kate Peter, has lost her children to the state. And this was a person that James Bano felt was important enough to not only come to our police department, but be around the children of our city. So it's okay that they were all there together, but yet when I asked for the video, oh no, you can't have the video. Well, what gave her the right to be in my city with the children of my city when it just doesn't make any sense. But the other thing is, in the internal affairs investigation, which I was reading the other day, they said that Kate Peter reached out to Pawtucket because they wanted to know what was going on in Pawtucket, because they had read an article in the Valley Breeze. Now, I don't even really read the Valley Breeze. I don't know many of my neighbors that even bother reading the Valley Breeze. But yet Kate Peter saw that article in the Valley Breeze. I find it a little bit odd that would even come about. I know that James Bano called them. Go ahead.
I just want to say something about the article in the Valley Breeze. James Bano manipulated that article in the Valley Breeze. That article, and I'll stand behind this because they changed it after some complaints were made, especially by us. That article listed that you were looking for the names and addresses of the police officers. And that's how it was printed in the Valley Breeze. That was per James Bano, and he knew very well that that was not the case. He manipulated that article. He manipulated Turtle Boy Sports to become an enforcement arm of the Pawtucket Police Department. I stand behind that, and I challenge James Bano to come and tell me otherwise.
Have you gotten comment from management?
There's a reason why he's no longer the FOP president or an officer in the city of Pawtucket anymore. I said this last week, and I'll continue to say it. The garbage took itself out. He went to a different city because he knows that, he had a team of people and he was operating like the mafia here in Pawtucket. So I don't know what they're going to do about him in East Providence. Hopefully he doesn't go and retaliate against anybody over there. But there's an ongoing investigation when it comes to his participation and whoever the rest of his team was here in Pawtucket, reading several comments while Lynn was speaking. One of the commentators is saying that not enough community policing going on in Pawtucket. That's absolutely right. But they just got more funding actually for the community response unit to be able to respond better and work better with the community. But what does that even mean? Is it is it a gifting unit? I mean, I had someone approach me the other day saying that if they have a problem with a police officer, can they call the community response unit to come and help them speak to the officer about how he's conducting himself in their neighborhoods to maybe tone it down a little bit because there's cultural misunderstandings that happen, in certain neighborhoods. And I couldn't tell him that he could contact the community response unit because I don't think that's what they're set up for. They're set up to handle conflicts in the community within community members. One might think that the police department is part of the community when they're working with the community. And that's all the more reason why we've been asking for what cities and towns they come from. Because when a police officer lives in the same community in which he works, he tends to care a little bit more about getting out of his car and shooting a hoop with the kids or something. We don't have that in Pawtucket. We did have it at one point. I will shout out Mike Newman. He was a great, great officer. Oh man, he came a long way. He got to know kids by name, who their parents were. He knew the community leaders, but the administration and the superiors do not want that type of community policing here. They do not want it. And any police officer that works well with a community leader gets the boot or was made very uncomfortable so that they can leave. We no longer have Mike Newman. I'm not saying that's why he left. He had probably left because he had other things to go do, which I don't blame him because he was never going to be able to operate the way that the community needed the police officers to operate. So we have a community response unit who just got more funding so that they can respond to the community better. I have yet to see that. I don't know what they're doing. Taking pictures once in a while, photo ops of handing out a bag or two of food to like elderly. That's about all I'm seeing. But if you look around and you see, I'm always sharing posts on my Pawtucket page about what's happening in Central Falls and Pawtucket. Police cooperating with the community, out there in the community dealing with children and families and community leaders, the chief interacting with community leaders. I have to share what's going on outside of Pawtucket because inside of Pawtucket, we don't have that. Nothing to do with community leaders. They want us against them. That's what they want, and they want to keep it that way.
Mm. And with all of this going on, am I to believe that the chief of police has nothing to say about all this?
Well, I can go so far as to say that she's part of the team that Bino was on to retaliate against me and Lynn. So that's very telling, right? And I'm not just saying that.
She
There's
approved.
documentation that he approved and signed
She
off so
approved
that
Turtle Boy Sports
online bully
being
bloggers
allowed.
can come into the building.
Yep. And now, if she had even, I mean, I'm assuming she must know who Turtle Boy Sports is, so she had to have been in on this. If she wasn't, she was absolutely negligent, because all it takes is a casual reading of their website to know that this is not a group you want affiliated with the city. And the internal affairs report into this matter said exactly that. They understood, and I can provide a copy of this report. It basically said that, they understand that this was not a good look for the city of Pawtucket. Having those people come in and then having them write articles on local activists because of information given to them by the Pawtucket police, which was misinformation, basically geared at bullying them. And that's exactly what it was. And this was, it's outrageous in my opinion. Outrageous. Bano should be ashamed of
I asked
himself.
her several times back over the like 3-month period after the articles came out. I asked her personally myself several times who authorized Bano to bring these bloggers into our police department to plot an attack on Lynn and myself. She always said, I don't know. I've asked her in front of other community leaders who approved it. And she would always say, I don't know. She did this for months during our meetings that I had with the police and the mayor. Starting last March, we met every other week. Every once in a while, after the meetings were over, we stand outside and just, casually talk. And I've asked her over and over again, who approved for Officer Bayno to invite these people into the building and plot on, Lynn and I. I always got an I don't know. I was very disappointed to find out, that she approved it. That was very disturbing to me.
But we find that she does lie quite a bit. That she does not give you a straight answer, or she goes around, the truth. And we actually saw that with, I don't know if you remember, there was a fireman that got hurt in Pawtucket. I think that they had to amputate his leg. Christine, did they amputate his leg?
I think they were going to. I didn't keep up on that one.
Okay. So she was the acting public safety director at the time, and she had sent out a letter saying you'd better change this incident report. So there was a letter that she sent out saying, you need to change this incident report, I guess to make her department look better or whatever. And I asked for it. I asked for it through an APRA, and they said that they didn't have it. And someone actually came to my house and put it in my door of the actual letter that she sent. So she's actually signing affidavits to the Attorney General's office saying that something doesn't exist when it most definitely did exist. And that's where the problem is. Where is the accountability and for this? We're having a police chief that's also the public safety director that is lying. And I don't think that, I know that Dimitri's working on a lot of Brady Giglio things. And I'm just wondering, when you sign an affidavit, I think that you're swearing to what you're saying. And
Absolutely.
I think that she can't be trusted. I really don't think that this woman can be trusted, and she'll lie at every turn.
I mean, we see this in city government. I mean, this is how it works. They will always lie or cover up to hide wrongdoing. It only comes out once you prove it. I mean, you basically have to, dig up the information and do basically what you did, Lynn. Ask for these documents in a public records request. Have Tina deny the fact that they exist, and then someone provides this information to us, and then we have proof that she lied. Then we bring that to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General agrees. Now, the Attorney General, he should have, said that was a willing. That he should have found them guilty of lying at that point, basically being a willful violation of the APRA, but they didn't. And this is the AG. I mean, I don't think he's ever used that clause in the APRA. That's a power that he has, or that office has, that they never use, and they never use it against police departments. I mean, these people are all on the same team. Unfortunately, we have an Attorney General's office that is, a law enforcement agency in charge of public records request violations against other law enforcement agencies. So there's kind of a conflict of interest there.
This has got to be overwhelming after a while, because it doesn't appear that anyone in the state is really willing to do anything about this, is there?
No, we've made the rounds. State police, Attorney General. We brought all this information to the AG and to the state police. Neither of them were willing to do anything.
Why wouldn't the Rhode Island State Police?
They're aware of it, and they actually, like I said, they enable the Pawtucket police to continue what they're doing. They give them so much time to be able to retaliate until they can shut us up or attempt to keep on. But we work with all of them. Like I said last week, we had gone to the state police about what the FOP president was doing. State police said they couldn't do nothing until the AG's office told them to. So we go to the AG's office, and the AG's office tells the state police to get involved and investigate this meeting that took place inside the Pawtucket Police Department so that the police can school the online bloggers on how to retaliate against me and Lynn. Well, when the AG said to the police, yes, go ahead and investigate it, the IA department quickly closed out the claim, right, saying that there was no wrongdoing. So the state police says, yeah, we were getting ready to go in, but they closed it out, so it's all set. This is how they all work together. This is what enables the
actually
Pawtucket
still
police to
open.
do what they do.
It's still
They can
actually
continue to
open and
retaliate
under.
against us because. Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm sorry, it's actually still open and under investigation. But since then, Bano has gone to East Providence. So when they close it out, they're going to say, well, we can't really, do anything to him now because look, he doesn't even work for us.
So they're claiming they can't find a finding of wrongdoing after he's left.
Yeah, they left.
They
I
haven't
think they
said
left
that yet.
the investigation open, but they did find him They did find him in violation of policy. That was, they threw us a couple of crumbs, and they found him in violation of policy, but they didn't find him. They didn't find him in violation of the greater conspiracy, which they probably could have if they would have done a more thorough investigation. But that's how it is. I mean, they're not. They're only going to look as far as they need to, and if they, find him in violation of a couple of policy violations, they figure they throw you a bone and try to quiet you down by saying, okay, he was wrong here, and he was found, to be in violation here, and that's enough for you. We're not going to dig any deeper because now it will start to expose other people in the department. So they
So
don't
Pat,
they
it
don't
goes
want to go
along
any
with what I
further.
said last week, right? You can't trust our IA department because IA is usually in on this stuff. They're a big old team. Chief is part of it. The IA department's part of it. FOP president, that's as high as you can go in Pawtucket, the FOP president. If he's in on it, you can imagine how many others are in on it. The officers that have been involved with several claims that I've put into the city, they're all involved. I mean, I know that there's a lounge that they meet at where they talk about it. I'm not going to go too in detail with that because I don't want to blow up the spot. I find out a lot of information this way. So when you have an IA officer who is involved with the setup, because the setup is real, and all of a sudden a video, not only they don't know where it is, they said that they found it to be corrupt. We have a city solicitor who likes to tamper with video because he likes to cover up what police are doing to us whenever they're retaliating. And now you have a video that has just gone missing. When we know that the IE officer who was in charge of investigating this claim with Bano was in on the setup. I say that adamantly. No one's going to change my mind. So of course the video is going to go missing. And of course he's going to find no wrongdoing because he's part of the team. He'd be an idiot if he throws himself under the bus with the guy. Bano is known to tell everybody he took one for the team. He took one for the team. And like I said before, and I'll continue to say it again, I will not rest until I find out who the rest of the team is.
Dimitri, do you want to mention how we had started getting some messages from who we believe was Kate Peter before all this actually came down, went down? And she actually mentioned Driscoll, who is Sean Driscoll, and he is the IA investigator. They had sent us a message mentioning his name. So it's almost like if I didn't live in the city of Pawtucket and I didn't,
let me just interrupt
how would
for
I
a minute.
know?
So This message was sent to the Rhode Island Accountability Project, and it was sent under a Facebook profile that I had no clue who it was, and they were trying to, they were trying to lead us into a meeting, claiming that they had information on corrupt police officers in the city of Pawtucket, and they had mentioned Internal Affairs Investigator Driscoll in this conversation. And I did my due diligence and I started to research the Facebook profile, and I found, digging back 2 years back, that this Facebook profile had been promoting Turtle Boy videos. So then I figured out it was someone from Turtle Boy, who I assume it was either Kate Peters or Masshole Mitch, because they were the two that were involved in this. And so basically they were trying to feed us strong info. I don't know what they were up to, but they obviously mentioned Driscoll's name. So they didn't here between these, how does she even know Mr. Driscoll? How does she know Mr. Massiao, who she sent her public records request to instead of sending it to the law department? It seems like there was a lot of circumstantial evidence linking Turtle Boy Sports to numerous police officers. And I documented all of this and I sent it in an IA complaint. I had screenshots of Bano calling Lynn Farinelli
Michael Moore's fatter, uglier sister.
Fatter, uglier sister on a Turtle Boy Sports chat. So he was watching Turtle Boy Sports chats on YouTube and commenting under his normal profile, which I think he thinks he's a secret agent. It's a Bano 007.
Wow.
And rude
What
comments about Lynn.
He changed his
I
name
took
to
screenshots
Delicious.
of all this and I sent Delicious. What a clown. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff he was doing, and he was doing it thinking nobody's going to notice. I mean, the lack of professionalism and the outright gall he had to attack Lynn and Christine using Turtle Boy Sports floored me. That's why I made it a point to try to, put this complaint in, this internal affairs complaint in. And the Lynn had tried to put this complaint in herself, but Driscoll wouldn't take it. I was so upset when I heard that. When Lynn called me and said that she tried to put a complaint in about this incident, and that, because Driscoll and her don't get along, he wasn't willing to take the complaint. I lost my shit. I called up and put the complaint in myself.
But he didn't know how much evidence you had. He didn't know all the back and forth that you had in your possession to link them all to it. At that,
and
he
it
didn't know
gets
from
better.
me.
Lynn, why don't you tell them what he said when you asked him, what are we supposed to do if we need to call the police for help? This is how far Driscoll went. Tell him what he said we need to do.
So when people were showing up at my house, he said, well, why didn't you call the police? So I found it a little funny. So I said, you seriously think that I should call the police? And I said, you think that they're going to, come to me? And he said, well, block your name and block don't say your name and block your number. So then you're assured that they're going to come.
Wow, that's
so interesting. So Pat, the same week, I'm gonna throw this in there. The same week, we're on Facebook and we're discussing all this stuff that was happening, and I was on one of the pages that we were discussing the retaliation that happens between the Pawtucket police and all kinds of stuff. And one of the major, is it major, or one of the captain of the fire department, right? Now, I was discussing something with a former firefighter for Pawtucket, and the captain of the fire department came on that page and started commenting some very inappropriate stuff, by the way. And he was like, the kid was like, well, I didn't work very long for the city of Pawtucket. And this captain thought it was cute online. This is how open the Pawtucket firefighters and police officers are online to coming for community leaders or anybody. They don't even keep it a secret. They use their real names. They come on. And here was the words from the captain of the fire department. He told the kid that the reason why he didn't stay on long enough is because he didn't stay on his knees long enough for the mayor. So I go and I commented, tagging the mayor to that comment. And I specifically said, Donald Grevian, this is what your captain of your chief department has to say. People don't stay on their knees long enough for you in order to remain in the departments. I said, what do you have to say for this comment being made by your fire captain? Should we put in for some extra funding for knee pads? Yes, that's how I said all that. And all of a sudden, my Facebook got blocked. This comment went away. He blocked me so I wouldn't be able to see it. But it wasn't before the fire captain told me that. I told him I'm going to go to the public safety director with the information he just shared on Facebook. I thought it was very inappropriate. His response to me was, "You're not going to get a meeting with the public safety director. They're not going to listen to you because the city doesn't like you. So you're not going to meet. You're not going to be able to tell on me or put a report in about me anyway." And guess what? That's exactly what happened. They wouldn't have a meeting with me, even though NAACP stepped in to try to get a meeting with me and the police department because now things were going way too far. And it was bothering me that someone who works in a rescue, first responder position would talk to me like that. Do you think I want someone like that responding to my emergency? No way. Keep them far away from me if I have an emergency. I can't trust that he'll save my life. So they dismiss all these concerns. They think it's really cute that these officers and firefighters get to go on Facebook and Twitter and run their mouth and say whatever they want. They're not held to a higher standards here. Here in Pawtucket, first responders are held to a ghetto standard. And then they want us to respect them. How do you respect the
And Pat,
fire captain who will say that about the mayor? And how do you respect the mayor that will allow the fire captain to suggest that in order to become a firefighter, you need to get on your knees for the mayor? That's very disturbing. No one seems to care.
and Pat, if you can imagine, we're pretty loud. We're pretty loud. We say it like it is. Can you imagine the people that can't speak up and what is actually happening to the citizens in the city of Pawtucket? This really needs to end.
Yeah, it just strikes me as a city out of control. And it just
I think what's happening.
Nobody can control it.
I think what's happening here is this is selective enforcement by everyone, by the Attorney General, Pawtucket Police, State Police. Lynn, Christine, and I have been very critical of some of the stuff going on in Pawtucket, and we've exposed quite a bit. The founding of the Rhode Island Accountability Project has been a thorn in the side of all of law enforcement. I mean, they didn't want, even though what we do is absolutely a public record, they didn't want that database created. They didn't want citizens to look and be able to see how his police department is policing itself. They wanted this information kept secret forever. Up until we started putting this database together, these reports never saw the light of day. So, some of the work we've done, they resent us for this. And I think the problem is they refuse to enforce the law when it comes to anything that is a problem on our end. I mean, if someone's harassing Lynn or Christine, they'll look the other way because they look at it like, these are the people who have been a thorn in our side. That's what they get, what they deserve. And unfortunately, this is how the selective enforcement, due to the fact that They don't like you.
Wow. It's astonishing to accept the fact that in the year 2021, you would have these type of shenanigans taking place in a somewhat major American city. It just seems like it's hopelessly out of control. There is no one in charge. It's the Wild West at
And
virtually every level.
With CU4PC, I thought that we were going to make some progress because they agreed to meet. That was a big step. But they agreed to meet just so they can get the heads up on what we were going to present, and then found their way out of it by creating a mayor's advisory board. I mean, let's see where that's going to go. Advising him as what? Maybe they should start off with advising him as to train your officers to stay off Facebook and Twitter and social media if they don't know how to act appropriately. Because it's very disturbing that they get away with it every single time. When you have the FOP president going on the FOP page, the Fraternal Order of Police of Pawtucket Twitter page, and harassing a councilman / police officer, you know, that thin blue line. I don't know. I guess it doesn't exist if you're from one city to another. I don't know. So the FOP president was harassing a councilman of Pawtucket, and he's also an officer by day. And he was harassing that person using a picture of myself and Lynn, which cropped out to make all cute and stuff, and harassing us through the FOP page connecting to the councilman's page. And he was found that he did nothing wrong with that either. He can just go around cropping pictures of us out and putting helmets on us and putting quotes and attacking the councilman / another police officer using our pictures on Twitter from the Fraternal Order of Pawtucket Police page on Twitter. And Pawtucket has no control over that. It's nonsense.
You bring up something very interesting, Christine. I remember when a complaint was put in about that, the city of Pawtucket made the argument that the Pawtucket Police FOP Twitter page is not an extension of the Pawtucket Police Department. Can you believe that? Because they're a union or a union page, they argued that the Twitter page of the FOP is not an extension of the Pawtucket Police Department. I was floored. I mean, let me tell you something. If I had enough money to sue these people, I would sue them in a heartbeat on a million different avenues, because some of the crap they come up with is outrageous. And that was one of them. To basically insinuate that the FOP Twitter page is not affiliated with the Pawtucket Police Department is outrageous.
Whew. Holy cow. Or in the words of the immortal, holy shnikes.
Circus over here, Pat. It's a circus.
Well, I'm now that Grebs and I are on a smiley basis, I'm going to reach out to him and going to invite him on the show. Let's see if we can get. I know that you guys will hold up your end of the bargain in terms of having a respectful, issues-based conversation. Yeah. Let's see if he will. Let's see if he'll join us.
I'll bring the popcorn. I'll bring the popcorn.
So, getting back to the very opening conversation that we had tonight before we sign off for the night, when do you think you'll get back to me about that whole gentrification thing?
Maybe you'll wear a beer.
Bueller?
About the same time he does anything about.
Just as an aside before we close out for the evening, you folks, Pawtucket's not only just do you just live there, but it's clearly a big part of your lives. Your volunteers, your activists. How do folks in the city, folks who actually live there, feel about this type of development that he's talking about, the train station and the stadium I mean, it's easy for me to pontificate from the mean streets of Cumberland, but how do regular folks feel about all this? Do they see the coming storm? Do they see the chaos, the increased property taxes, the gentrification, the increased rentals? Do they see that ahead in their way?
I can tell you that the gentrification has already started. Many houses have already been sold to people coming in from Massachusetts, in and around the Woodlawn area, near the Whedon Street, behind Cunningham. Many houses have already been sold to people that's coming in from Massachusetts buying these houses. Rent's going to be going up. I mean, it's just a lot of different things that are happening at the same time. Along with all the stadium going, a lot of people wonder, are the jobs to build the stadium going to go to locals? Are we going to be able to drive by and wave at these people who are doing the construction all over downtown and know someone who's working there? Probably not. Probably not. So it's kind of like they're happy to see that maybe the city might be looking prettier, but you have to understand one thing, that the mayor doesn't like for anybody to know: the true demographics of the city. Pawtucket is actually majority of a minority community. So the majority, you know, especially in the Woodlawn community, some of them are like non-English speakers, right? Who really don't understand what's happening. So they don't know that this is going to be a bad thing. The homeowners in the area where the train station is going, they really don't even have an idea of what's happening right now. Why? Because even though some of them are voters, where do they go to go get educated to why they're voting, how they're voting, why should vote, and what they're voting on? There is nowhere educating folks why they're voting. What happens is when they go to the polling stations, especially the church over there on Wheaton, they have interpreters inside. Well, what they call interpreters. I call them little coaches. So when some of these non-English speaking voters go inside, they're not having an interpreter tell them what the question is or how to fill it out. They're pointing to them where to fill in a circle. Some of them have just gone in and they say, "Oh, well, someone help me fill it out." So I just did what they told me to do.
Mhm.
And next thing you know, the taxes are going up and they're being forced to sell their homes, whatever which way they're doing that. And another thing I like to mention too is that some of us catch on to why some of the mills catch fire. And a lot of people just think, oh, another mill caught fire. I mean, the ground has to be flat in order for that mini city to go up. You know what I mean? How else is it going to get flat? How much faster does it have to get flattened? You know what I mean? So it's all one big show that's happening, and everyone's playing their role. The community, unfortunately, over there, a lot of them who don't understand what's really going on. I've been saying this for like what, 5 or 6 years. Guys, watch out. If you own a house over there, watch out. It's coming. Now they're starting to see it, and they're like, "You did say something, but we weren't sure what you were talking about." Well, this is what I was talking about: the gentrification. It's happening. The ball is rolling.
Well, that brings us to, well, at least the close for tonight. But there is so much more to come, isn't there? I think everyone's homework this week coming up is to think of a name for the show. It can be as offensive as you want, because I think we just need to continue this conversation on a weekly basis. There's just never seems to be an end to the ebb and flow, if you will, of citizens' rights in the great city of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Again, a city that, despite
we have plenty of content.
We certainly do. Thank you all again for joining us tonight. Let's keep in touch over the week. I'm going to share some stuff with you folks this week in terms of some video clips, and I'd love your interpretation of them as the coalition continues to stay on the road, and ask the hard questions, as you folks do all the time. And, I just want to remind people that we
again
haven't.
for having us, Pat, and I want to say thank you for the support from the CU4PC team. I also definitely want to say thank you for the last few weeks, of Dimitri and Lynn joining me and telling us what's happening at the state level. And I also want to say thank you to some of the commentators that have been watching and joining in the conversation. We need everyone to join in this conversation. If
Right.
anybody has an issue going on, put it in the comments. We need for the voices to just stand up and start speaking out. We've tried. We've been meeting with them since March, bi-weekly, and we've been trying without protesting, without putting the city in jeopardy. We've been trying to meet with them to see how we can resolve issues. And once again, they've gone off on their own merry way and created their own little advisory board so they can pretend they did something. So we need to now start using our voices and just connect with each other and unite and let everybody else understand what's happening here. We get it. Some of us get it, and we're not afraid to fight.
Well, election season is starting to loom, and I think we were going to talk about having a guest. Perhaps we could do it next Tuesday if you can reach out to the candidate or candidates for council. Perhaps that we should ask them to join us as well and see what they have to say about the situation. Just thinking out loud, thinking of some ideas. We'll bat it around this week, and let's keep this show going. And like I said, let's carve this out. It's up to you guys, but I'd like to carve this out and make this a distinct show, just sort of like its earlier evening predecessor, Pump Up the Volume, has become. That started out with a conversation on a show with myself and now gubernatorial candidate, and then Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz, who's been an activist in the community in terms of on everything from healthcare to inoculations. It's up to you guys. Let's make this a regular show. Make it part of the format with its own identity, because an identity that reflects the city of Pawtucket. And let's focus weekly on Pawtucket issues. And I'll leave it up to you guys to steer the ship in a sense. Bring on the guests that you think are appropriate, that can contribute most to the conversation, or that might need a grilling. You can always invite them. They may not always say yes. It's like asking, it's like asking someone to dance. They may or may not say yes, but we'll make them make them feel welcome, won't we?
Right.
All right, folks. Well, we are the Coalition, loud and proud. As always, outrage, porn free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty, mighty Twitter at coalition_radio. Again, folks, it's just a heartfelt plea. If you could take a moment, subscribe to us, like us, follow us, all that good stuff, we'd appreciate it. It allows us to amplify our signal, to rise above the noise that conventional media represents today and their inability to really react in any demonstrable manner to the challenges that face communities around Rhode Island. In this case, we're talking about Pawtucket. Again, I believe one of the coolest cities in the state, and I believe, much like Brooklyn, is infinitely more interesting than that. What's that place? Providence down the street. There you go. We'll be on again next Tuesday night. We've got programming all week. Stay tuned. We've got shows focusing, for example, tomorrow night, RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress. We're going to be doing a replay of that show from one of their kits. We've done probably over 40-something shows in the book on that, all revolving around all the challenges, the products, the issues surrounding folks who need access, physical access, because of the physical challenges they suffer. Chas Kalenda, attorney at law, a relatively new show. He'll be on live tomorrow night. He pretty much alternates every other week with issues regarding, the law and the law as it impacts ordinary folks. Everything from Second Amendment rights to OUI situations to criminal violence, all of these. What do you do as an ordinary citizen? Full disclosure, Attorney Kalenda is a candidate for Attorney General. So I've always spoken in this network about the opportunity for crossover shows. For example, and when I was in my youth, the crossover between the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family. Well, perhaps a crossover between Chas Kalenda, attorney at law, and what will become this show. Might not be so lighthearted, or there might not be as many hijinks, but we can certainly discuss the hijinks that are going on in the Pawtucket City Hall. And then on Thursday nights, we have a little bit of fun with the golf dudes. And then there's intermittent program throughout the week as the news cycle allows on a variety of guests, many coming from the political world and or the civil rights world and or hopefully a really, really hot mess of a mix of all of it. Folks, we'll see you tomorrow night. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. And as I like to say, one of my hashtags is, and I think this is reflective as we leave tonight, of the people who are on the air right now. We always say hashtag take it personally. I'm proud to share if you will, a signal, a dais, a platform with my guests because all of them clearly take it very, very personally.